Hello, Dippers. Welcome to Volume 34 of Humpday Hysteria. As always, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Saucy Pod. Listen to us on iTunes and Spotify. With me, as always, fresh off surgery, all laid up, co-host, St. Louis correspondent, basketball mastermind, Fletcher Scott Hoig.
Leighton, Paul George says, I want to be dealt to the Lakers. If you trade for me, it's just a rental. He gets traded to Oklahoma City, and he stays there. Same thing with Kawhi Leonard, and Toronto takes a chance on him because of the whole Paul George situation. Now we have the same thing with Anthony Davis, who at first came out and said he didn't have a list of teams, but then a couple days later says, I prefer to be traded to the Lakers. Anything else would be a rental. This, with Anthony Davis, is different than the other players because one guy, Rich Paul. Rich Paul represents LeBron, obviously represents Anthony Davis, too. This will be a rental if somebody gets him. You can mark my words on that now.
Why do you think it mattered that he was with Rich Paul?
Well, Rich Paul is obviously in LeBron's ear and vice versa, and then he's in Anthony Davis's ear. This whole thing, when he first signed with Clutch Sports, everybody knew it meant something. They didn't know what it was going to mean exactly, but you're seeing it now what it means. He's going to be a Laker, whether it's now or if it's at the end of the 2021 season, he's going to be in the purple and gold at some point in his career.
Okay. And this week's show, so talked about, we got Anthony Davis when being traded. The trade line is 1 week away, and also getting captains have been announced. But before we get to that, let's drop the noise.
Humpday. Who's Hysteria?
A Sauce on the Side production.
So Fletcher, we'll start with the Anthony Davis trade. Monday morning, Anthony Davis' agent, Rich Paul, announced that Anthony Davis must be traded away from the New Orleans Pelicans. Rich Paul, as we already talked about, is also LeBron James' agent. So basically, he's going to be a Laker, we talked about it already. But Fletcher, why can't the Celtics make a big trade for him?
Well, there's this rule in the NBA called the player designation rule, and you'll sometimes hear it referred to as the Rose Rule. So both Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving signed their contracts under the Rose Rule. It's actually named after point guard Derrick Rose. So the rule allows certain players coming off their rookie scale contracts to earn 30% of the salary cap as opposed to 25%. So that's how you see these different max contracts levied. You see some guys signed for 4 years, $80 million. You see some guys 5 years, $95 million. And there are certain stipulations you have to hit to get that greater pay scale. So to be eligible for, getting that greater pay scale or being in this Rose Rule stipulation, a player has to have achieved one of three accolades, more or less, during the first 4 seasons of their career. It could be an MVP award, Defensive Player of the Year award, making the All-Star team a couple times, being on the All-NBA selection, something like that. And Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving both think, enough of those stipulations to be considered under the Rose Rule. NBA teams cannot trade for more. This is the weird part. NBA teams can't trade for more than one player who has signed an extension under the Rose Rule. It's a limitation that is only applicable when the players are still on their Rose Rule extensions. So these are both their first contract after their rookie contract that they can't have two of those same kind of players on there. If these guys were on their second or third contracts off their rookie deal, then they could both be on the same team. But since they're on their first big pay scale contract after their rookie year and they're under the Rose contract, it doesn't allow for them to be on the same team. It's a really stupid rule. The Celtics acquired Kyrie Irving, obviously, when they traded for him from the Cavaliers. So basically, they can't deal for Anthony Davis while Kyrie's on the roster or any other player that has any kind of extension. They're not really worried about that. It's only an Anthony Davis issue at the moment. So until Kyrie Irving leaves or agrees to a new deal, they can't really get Anthony Davis on the roster. They could trade for Anthony Davis by giving up Kyrie Irving. That's a possibility. But the earliest they can do anything is July 1st when Kyrie Irving's contract is up, and then he'll be eligible for a new deal. So it's just a really weird situation that you don't see happen pretty much ever. So
yeah, I don't know about that until that happened until now.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing.
It's basically probably because players that good don't get traded that much in their prime. But pretty much, yeah. Nick Wright on Tuesday morning came out, or maybe it's Monday morning, who the fuck knows, came out and said that the Celtics could not legally do this trade So there way
Oh,
could
yeah,
do it
no.
like illegally and get around the books like he's implying?
Maybe contrary to Nick Wright's opinion, there is no way to do this trade legally or illegally. It's just not going to work.
Okay. So let's look at the other
He's an idiot. He's a fucking idiot.
So the Lakers are obviously the number one shooter for him. Like that's we're talking about where he's gonna go. What do
Yep.
you think the trade would be? If you could make the trade, what would it be?
Well, while we're on this little stupid Nick Wright thing, we were talking about this before the show. Nick Wright's proposed trade to the Pelicans for Anthony Davis. Apparently, he would just come sit down at the table with the GM of the Pelicans and say, "Here, I will give you Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Ivica Zubac, Brandon Ingram, and Lance Stevenson just to fill out cap purposes, and then I'll throw 2 first-round picks on there for you, and you'll give me Anthony Davis." I don't know why he's so hell-bent on just coming out and offering the whole fucking farm for one guy like this. I mean, if the Pelicans work you to some point and you have to give that up to get him, I would say do it for sure. But I don't want to personally. I don't want to part with Kyle Kuzma and Brandon Ingram. I would give you one or the other to start off with. But I definitely wouldn't just walk out there and lay all my cards on the table and say, "Yeah, pick me dry." Pretty much is what Nick Wright's saying. There is a trade that I would do. It's a similar one. I would give up Lonzo Ball. I would give up Brandon Ingram. I would give up Lance Stevenson. I would give up Ivica Zubac. And then instead of giving Kyle Kuzma, I would offer Mo Wagner, the guy they drafted out of Michigan.
Uh-huh.
So you don't need Mo Wagner or Ivica Zubac if you trade for Anthony Davis because you already have JaVale McGee and Tyson Chandler. You've got plenty of bigs to go around. Both Mo Wagner and Ivica Zubac are good young guys who could be a formidable front court in the NBA. We already know the potential with Ball and Ingram that they show. That they've playing for the early part of the season and then last year too. But then Lance Stevenson, there's no harm, no foul with Lance Stevenson because he's on a 1-year deal. So, after this year, you're done with Lance Stevenson. That's more cap space, and you're not really paying anything for Ball, Ingram, Wagner, or Zubac. And then, you work out the deal with the picks as needed. I'm sure you're going to have to include 2 first-round picks, and I'm not necessarily opposed to that. What I am opposed to is just walking up to New Orleans and saying, here's all my good young guys. You can have them all. You can have 2 first-round picks too, and that's how we're going to start the negotiation. I think it's a very terrible negotiating tactic. So that's what I would start off with. I definitely wouldn't do the Nick Wright approach and just give him everything that I have straight from the get-go.
So we talked about this before show too about a possible trade, and I said I have no problem giving up Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma because I think Brandon Ingram sucks. And Kyle Kuzma, while he could be really good, Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis. He's already an All-NBA player. He's 25 years old, and he could be the best center of all time at the end of his career. So why would you not give up both those players?
I definitely would if it came down to it, but what I'm saying is I would do everything in my power not to do it. I definitely wouldn't sit down at the table and say, here is a package that includes all of my good young players and 2 first-round picks. I wouldn't do that. I would not start off the deal by trying to screw myself over like that.
Okay. If it came down to it, would you give up Ingram, Ball, and Kuzma?
If it came down to it, yeah, I would.
All right. So, are there any other possible shooters for him at this point in time, or maybe just the Lakers or bust?
There's speculation with the Knicks. You've seen a lot of, I'm sure I've seen a lot of trade rumors with the Knicks. I'll say that. I've seen different packages. They have made Tim Hardaway Jr. available. The Knicks have. So, Tim Hardaway Jr. is a very formidable player. You could pair him with Drew Holiday. You could offer also for Anthony Davis, you could include Tim Hardaway Jr., Kevin Knox, the small forward that they recently drafted, and then Mario Hezonja. And then you can offer next year's first-round pick, this coming year's first-round pick. You could offer a couple picks as well. It just kind of depends on what – you're going to get better draft picks from the Knicks, but it's just kind of depending on what the Pelicans are looking for. I think you get more young talent, a little more bang for your buck with the Lakers. I think you're looking at Ingram and Kuzma, who are definitely better than Kevin Knox. And then Lonzo Ball, maybe a fresh start could be helpful for him. But the Knicks are also in the mix for Anthony Davis, although I don't know how serious it is compared to the Lakers.
So, Anthony Davis, talk about the NBA player. Would he be the best player ever traded in his prime?
I don't know about all that. I mean, Shaq got traded, so
Shaq got traded, Kareem got traded, so probably not.
yeah, Shaq and Kareem, they got traded. So I mean, it's hard to say. He's definitely a good one though.
So, it came out today that the GM for the Pelicans, don't know his name, he's GM for the Pelicans, is not answering his phone for any trades. So, I'm going to assume that he has not liked any trades he's heard at all on the time hearing about the same trades. So let's say the trade of the Lakers does happen and they do give up Ingram, Ball, and Kuzma. How good are the Lakers then? With LeBron healthy.
Yeah, with LeBron healthy, so their starting lineup at that point would probably go Rondo, Josh Hart, or KCP, LeBron, AD, and JaVale McGee. You got to think at some point after this year that they're going to look to put AD at the center, find a guy who they can put out the 4 spot who can dribble and drive and shoot and stuff like that. As far as the GM for the Pelicans, as soon as Anthony Davis made that trade request publicly, there was a report that came out from the Pelicans. They're not in any rush to deal Anthony Davis, and then the GM is saying, "Oh, I'm not even going to answer my phone right now. I'm not worried about it. We don't feel any pressure to move him by the deadline." These are all things that you are supposed to say, so you can still kind of hold the leverage to some extent. You don't want to come out and be like, "Yeah, we want to get rid of him." It's like, no, we don't really care if he gets dealt or not. You're gonna have to give us a good offer, and we might consider it at that point. So they're just playing hardball. They're trying to create some leverage for themselves, and I don't think it's any surprise. They want to get rid of him, though. They want to deal Anthony Davis because they sent out 2 very conflicting messages in my mind. One, they say that they're not in any hurry to deal Anthony Davis, but then on that same day that they said that, they released a statement saying that Nikola Mirotic and Julius Randle were on the trade block. So it's obviously looking like you're wanting to rebuild. You deal those 3 players and get some really quality pieces for them and quality picks. I think that makes a lot more sense. So they're just trying to play hard to get and maintain what leverage they still have available to them.
So let's just say it doesn't happen before the trade deadline and you have it this offseason. That
sucks for the Lakers.
What do you think he gets traded to this offseason?
He's probably going to go to the Celtics at that point because they could make a lot better offer. They could give him Al Horford, and then they could give him, maybe Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, and then throw in a bunch of picks. Or maybe they could get away with just giving away Al Horford and a bunch of picks, and then keeping those 2 young guys. And essentially, all you're doing is swapping Al Horford for Anthony Davis. And then at that point, who even cares if Kyrie Irving comes back? Because you could just sign Terry Rozier, and you're still going to have damn near 4 All-Stars on your starting lineup. So
yeah, it wouldn't be too bad. The Boston would be pretty okay then. But that's something we're going to follow all season long. I bet it's an off-season special, so talk about it again. But so trade deadline is next week, and basically no big names of Anthony Davis have been talked about being moved. The Grizzlies said last week that they want to trade Conley and Gasol, but they both have big contracts, and nothing has come out about any possible shooters for them. Are there any other players you think could be on the move that haven't really been talked about a lot?
Well, Jabari Parker's been a guy who, ever since Jim Boylan, the guy for the Chicago Bulls, took over for Fred Hoiberg, Jabari Parker just hasn't gotten any playing time, and Jim Boylan just says he's not in our future plans. That's all he's saying, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because you just signed the guy for a 2-year, $40 million contract with a player or with a team option the next year, I believe. I don't understand to where a 6'8" guy who could be a point forward, a stretch 4, a small forward who's 6'8", 240, shoots the ball, handles the ball. I don't see where a guy like that doesn't fit in the NBA today. So, the Jazz have looked into trading for him. I personally think that excuse me, I think that the Pacers should look into trading for him since Oladipo's gone down. But that's a guy I think I would trade for if I were a GM. He's completely healthy. He's just not getting a whole lot of playing time right now because Jim Boylan is basically Tom Thibodeau, only not as smart. And so that's a pretty impressive, feat to accomplish, really, if you're going to be Tom Thibodeau and just not as smart. Even last night, Yahoo said that the Jabari Parker experiment took a big step backwards or whatever last night. So I don't know what's going on there with Chicago and why they don't buy into Jabari that much. So if I was a team out there, I would look for him. But other than that, you're kind of hearing the most of it with the Conley and the Marc Gasol and then the Anthony Davis. But I'm sure there'll be buyouts that occur, and then some smaller trades that you're going to hear that you didn't really see coming. But yeah, that's kind of what I think right now.
So, what teams do you think are making moves that haven't at all? Even if it's selling, what team do you think should be doing something?
What team should be doing something? Just the biggest one I could think of, whether it's, and I said this last week before the Pelicans, or before Anthony Davis came out and said he wanted to be traded. The Pelicans, I mean, they got to do something, whether it's buy to keep Anthony Davis around, which obviously isn't the case anymore. But at this point, you got to look at sending Drew Holiday out, Anthony Davis out, Randall, Mirotic. You got to look at coming off a lot of different pieces. If I was Houston, I would definitely be looking to buy wherever you can, and they kind of already have been buyers in a way with the Kenneth Faried deal. Charlotte, if they can make a play for somebody big, but they don't have a whole lot of assets to give out, so they might be looking at be sellers anyway. The thing is, when you're looking at buyers and sellers, you kind of want to look at that 9 to 6 range and see kind of who's doing what and where teams are trending in order to get a sense of whether they should be buyers or sellers. We already know the teams that are in the bottom are going to want to stay that way at this point, and the teams that are at the top are going to try to solidify their positions there. So it's really the mindset of the teams in the 9 to 6 spot or so, what they want to do with the rest of their season.
So one thing you said is Charlotte. Last week, Michael Jordan came out and said they're not going to trade Kemba Walker. Is that stupid?
Yep. Yeah, I don't see the problem I have with Michael Jordan as an owner and a GM. Like he's too competitive, and he's one of those cases where a guy's working too hard instead of working smart. At some point you got to cut your losses short and realize you're not going anywhere. Kemba Walker's a fine player, and you're doing well. Don't get me wrong, but you're in the 8th spot. You were in the lottery last year. You should have traded Kemba Walker in the draft last year, get another pick, and try to build with a young core moving forward. Instead, you're just wasting Kemba Walker's time. You've drafted shooting guards back-to-back years. You draft Dwayne Bacon, and then you draft Miles Bridges. Like, at some point, you got to pick a direction you're willing to go and stop missing in the draft. And so, a way you can compensate for not doing so well in the draft is getting more picks. More picks you have, the greater chances you have of getting something right. So, I don't understand Michael Jordan's philosophy on not wanting to come off Kemba. I know it's not an easy move, but at some point, you've got to bite the bullet and do it smart.
Yeah, that's one guy I thought he was a good trade for sure, because like the thing you just said, the Charlotte, nothing going for them, they don't know where they want to go, might as well start over, because they're about mediocre as it possibly gets, and that's how I think we want to be in the NBA today.
Mm-hmm.
So now we move on to Fletcher on the fly. This week, segment where I Fletcher with 3 questions. He knows what they are. He has them all on the fly. Our first question.
Yep.
What would you rather have right now? Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma, or the number one pick in the upcoming draft?
And I mean, I'm just looking at a blank team right now, and which one would I rather have, those two or the number 1 pick? Or
Yeah, so Zion or those two.
Zion.
Really?
I just said Zion was going to be a Hall of Famer better than Charles Barkley and DeMarcus Cousins last show. I think I'm going to stick with Zion still, yeah.
I guess, okay, good point. Also, next question. Last season, you said that Luke Walton was a top 10 coach of the NBA. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I definitely do. He's a younger guy, and he's been handed. I mean, he won 35 games in the West last year with Kyle Kuzma and Lonzo Ball as rookies, and Brandon Ingram getting hurt a good amount of the year, and Lonzo Ball as well. You're just looking at a lot of new pieces and a lot of moving parts here, and a lot of new expectations. I think they're doing okay. I mean, they've missed LeBron for like 13 games now,
17.
and so they've been playing 17.
Yeah.
Wow,
It's been a minute.
Lots changed in a week. Yeah, I mean, it was like 11 or 12 last week. I guess they would play more than 2 games in 1 week. But anyway, I mean, they've been struggling. There's no doubt about that. They've lost to teams that they shouldn't have, but they've beaten some teams that are better quality teams too. And you get those ups and downs with a young team. I definitely would take him as a coach for my team. I'm not speaking for the Pacers, but if I was going to have a team, I would definitely take Luke Walton as my coach.
Last question. This guy is having a season that's insane, but he's being super underrated because he's hidden behind James Harden and Jonathan Kumpo. Steph Curry. Is he a top 5 player in the NBA?
Top 5? That's always a good question. It's tough to say. I mean, you could put him at 5. You could argue that maybe Kawhi or Anthony Davis should be at 5. Because, I mean, in my mind, it goes LeBron, KD, Giannis, Harden, and then your 5. It's kind of flip or flop, you know. I mean, you got AD, you got Kawhi, you got Steph. Hard to say. I would take. It's tough to say. I mean, I would take AD just because of what he provides defensively, but I would at the same time I would still take Steph over Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard averages 2 assists per game. I don't know how well he can play with others, so put him at 6.
At 6, okay. Is AD your number 5? That you said?
Yep.
Okay, I agree with that. And that's been this week's Flex on the Fly. Look for that each and every week. So the All-Star captains got announced, and each we have Giannis. The other starters were Kemba Walker, Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, and Kyrie Irving. Do you think they got it right, or do you think you want to change something in it?
I mean, the way the voting works, they vote on the front court and the back court, so that's why you see Kyrie and Kemba starting. I mean, they're both point guards, but they best back court they have. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, Giannis being a captain, that's obvious, and then Kemba, Kawhi, Embiid, and Kyrie. I don't think anybody has any argument, as far as maybe who is the best top 5 players in the East. I think that's about it. So no, I don't think I would change anything. I mean, it's just the way the voting works. Why you have 2 point guards starting like that.
All right. So I believe the rest of the team gets announced early next week or later this week.
Yeah, they pick it.
Is a player
They pick their teams.
Yes, but have all the All-Stars been announced yet? Like who they get picked from? I don't think they have.
Yeah, I don't think all the reserves are quite announced yet. No.
The one player you think that should be a reserve that is like right on the edge that you would like to endorse?
Just the way the whole voting system works, I'm really not aware of who's doing what right now. So I will have an opinion once they are released.
Okay. And now to the West. We have LeBron as captain, and the other stars are Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Paul George, and James Harden. Do you think they got it right? And if not, what would you change?
Yeah, again, it's about front court and back court. So that's why you don't see a center starting here. So, I mean, LeBron, KD, and Paul George, that makes up your front court. I don't have a problem with that. Steph and Harden. Harden's been lighting it up for a while now. Steph is Steph. So, I don't have a problem with how they pick the teams. Again, it's just before you didn't have a shooting guard, and now you don't have a center, and it's just the way the voting goes. So, no, and these guys are all having great years. I mean, Harden, Paul George, you can make MVP arguments for them. Paul George, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. We already know what Steph, KD, and LeBron are as basketball players. So, no, I think they got this right as well.
Okay. You didn't know for the East, but I know your opinion on this one for the West. Is Luka Doncic an All-Star?
Yeah. I think he should definitely get strong consideration for it. If he didn't make it, I mean, every year in the West, somebody gets left off that should have made it. There was one year that Paul George, it was just last year, Paul George wasn't going to make it, and everybody was up in arms over that. And he came in as a reserve because somebody got hurt, But if Luka Doncic doesn't make it, I'm not going to be too butthurt over it or anything. But at the same time, I think he should be in.
Okay. And before we move on to the best team right now, I would like to just real quick talk about good players in the East. At any point in time, has Mike Conley been a top 25 player in the NBA? Me and Drake got in an argument yesterday.
Yeah, he's never made an All-Star team. He's never made an All-NBA team, so it's hard for me to say that he's a top 25 player.
No, ever in his career. During any season.
Yeah, well, he's never been an All-Star. He's never been on an All-NBA team, so it's
all-defensive team. He's had a couple.
Tony Allen was on plenty of all-defensive teams too, and he's on a top 25 player.
Yeah, well,
so.
Mike Conley's had a lot of really good seasons, so fuck you.
Good seasons don't equal top 25 player.
Okay, well, we'll
talking about the best 25 players in the world. Has Mike Conley been into that? I don't think so, because he's never been an All-Star.
During the Fletcher Say Out Loud test, that does sound odd.
Top 25 player in the world, Mike Conley? I don't think so.
I mean, shit. Last year Al Horford was an All-Star. I think he's better than Al Horford.
Maybe at one point in his career he was better than Al Horford, maybe.
Okay, so top 25 player. All-Star.
Because he's better than Al Horford? Okay, whatever.
It's All-Star. According
That's all the criteria you need for 25 in your mind. We'll go with it.
That's what you just said. That's your only criteria you said. Well, he's never an All-Star. Can't fit
No,
him
I'm
in there.
saying he might have been better than Al Horford at one point in his career, sure. But if that means he's a top 25 player in your mind, then okay, whatever.
He's better than an All-Star, and you just said that you gotta be an All-Star to be a top 25 player.
Well, they only have, 12 guys on each All-Star team? So that's 24.
Okay, so one extra guy, and Al Horford is the top 24 guys. So,
Well, there's still... Okay, if you think so.
I'm just saying what you said against you. I'm sorry.
I mean, I would still take Al Horford's career over Mike Conley's career.
Okay, but one season. That's what's important.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, on to the best team right now. Is your confidence the Bucks taking over the first place, like a half game or so, then think over Toronto? I'm going to say Toronto's the best team. I just think their best experience, and when it comes down to it, they will win a 7-game series against Milwaukee. Fletcher?
Yeah, I think Milwaukee is my best team, and I've been riding their bandwagon for a minute here. The length, the defense, the shooting, the star power of the coach. They got it all. They can do mismatches. They can do switches. They can do a lot of different things defensively. In a 7-game series, that's what travels more than depth, which is what the Toronto Raptors have on their side. So, Bucks.
All right, and with the conference, Warriors got Boogie back. Boogie's playing really well. He had 22 points in a game against Indiana on Monday. I think he was like 7 for 12 from the field. Whatever it was, they look fucking unstoppable. Best team in the NBA. Best team in the conference. Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I think it's the best team in the West and the best team in the NBA as well. The Golden State Warriors.
They've now won 11 straight games.
Yeah, they've won 11 straight games, and they really rocked the Pacers the other night. So, I mean, the Pacers are down. Don't get me wrong, but still, I mean, a 32-point victory on the road like that. And to cap off your 11th straight win, that's saying something. So definitely the Warriors, best in the West, best in the NBA right now.
Last week you said that it was a really slight margin better than the Bucks and the Raptors. Do you feel like that is growing at all, or you still get the same margin?
It's growing.
Okay.
I don't know how much, but it's definitely growing, yeah.
I'm on to game of the week. My game of the week is Friday night. It's Rockets at Nuggets. Nuggets are one of the better teams in the NBA. James Harden, while he still put up a lot of points, has been very efficient. Rockets have been losing games when Chris Paul came back, coincidentally enough, going to Denver against the second best team in the Western Conference. I want to see if they can pull this one out. I think they will, so I'm going to bet on the Rockets.
All right. Well, my game of the week is tomorrow night. It's the 76ers versus the Warriors. They're in Oakland. I'm excited to see how Ben Simmons and Embiid will match up with the star power of Golden State. Golden State's favored by 9.5. Not sure if I'll bet it or not, but I think the Golden State Warriors are definitely going to win that game. But I'm excited to watch Embiid and Simmons go at those guys. Be a good one, I think.
This has been Volume 34 of Hysteria. As always, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Saucy Pod. Listen to us on iTunes and Spotify. From Layton, from the Laid Up Fletcher, as always, stay saucy.